at this, then somebody's going to say, well, if I'm a good entrepreneur, am I not creating an employment situation, thus creating the servants that I wasn't called to be? And the answer is no. That's a lie from the devil that we've been taught for about the past 100 years, and literally about 100 years. Because if we look at how you're supposed to do this, just follow Jesus' example with the laborers in the field, not the workers. So if I have a factory, let's say, oh, my factory's booming and I'm building widgets. Well, obviously I need to build more widgets, so I need to get employees, right? No, I need to get laborers, which are entrepreneurs themselves. Where I say to Bob, I need 27 widgets a day. If you and your crew can put together 27 widgets a day, I don't care if it takes 10 hours, I don't care if it takes 4 hours, I just need them by Friday. Once you make them, you're free to do whatever you want, man. That is how you grow businesses. Roads would be built, factories would be staffed, stores would be staffed, and they would be staffed with better quality people, because now, if he's not producing a good service, the other entrepreneur who can will replace him. And it also keeps prices down for consumers, because now he's competing with that guy to produce my widgets at a better quality for a less price. So this idea that, well, if the economy is going to grow, we have to have employees, right? No. Employment is actually a modern day invention, which is why it's not in the Bible. We invented it after the Industrial Revolution en masse. Now, it existed prior to that, but en masse we invented it after the Industrial Revolution because these massive factories wanted to maximize their profits, not their effectiveness for the kingdom of God. So because of that, you pay them as little as possible, skirt the safety laws as little as possible, and it's interesting that politically you have the right and left fighting, and the left tends to say, well, it's the left that's the party of the working man. The reality is that free enterprise, whichever party decides to pick that up someday, is going to be the party for the working man, because that's actually what increases everything that's important to you, because it allows you to then get into a position where you have that ability to negotiate. We've abdicated that position with unions, and we've wanted to treat the union like the entrepreneur in the business that goes to the boss and negotiates for us for the things that we wanted. Whereas if we would have stayed entrepreneurs, we would have had that power from day one. So we have to get back to this place where even when we're filling our staff positions, that we fill them with laborers, not servants. And even if somebody is going to be an employee, make it be for a short time. Everybody who comes and becomes an employee for me, I try really hard to make sure that they're a laborer, but if they don't want to do that, if they're like, nope, I just want a W-2, 40 hours a week, click the clock, I actually encourage them to quit. I will actually spend time with them all the time, teaching them about entrepreneurship. Someday I want you out of here. Even if we go partners on something, I want you to go be an entrepreneur. And an entrepreneur is not, again, a small business owner. It's not, well, I'm going to buy something used, sell it on Amazon. No, an entrepreneur is a skill set. It's a lifestyle. So entrepreneurship is really a lifestyle. And it's this mindset that says, well, wait a second, I thought small business ownership takes 40, 50, 60 hours a week. Yeah, small business ownership does. But my philosophy, and I've been doing this for 22 years with now hundreds of thousands of people around the planet, my philosophy is if you're working more than 30 hours a week, you're doing it wrong. There's no reason why a billionaire can become a billionaire in 15 hours a week. You're working 50 hours a week and you haven't made 80 grand a year yet. There's something wrong. Let's just admit it. So entrepreneurship is a lifestyle. And I remember when I was teaching this class down in Florida once, and we took the class out in these rental cars. We stopped the car on the side of the road, told everybody to get out, and I said, okay, pretend you're homeless, and by tonight, don't be. And by lunch, we started 4 businesses and made over $45,000. Because entrepreneurship is a skill set. It's a skill set that once you learn it, you're going to be fine for the rest of your life. Entrepreneurship your success in entrepreneurship is not determined by your grades in school. See, other professions say, well, let's see your transcripts, or where did you go to college? Or you might be a convicted felon. You're trying to rebuild your life, but every time you apply for a job, you have to mark, have you ever been charged with a crime? Yes. Well, entrepreneurship doesn't care. Entrepreneurship is the great equalizer. Entrepreneurship doesn't matter if you are from Yale or jail. Doesn't matter if you were a D student, an F student, didn't go to school. As a matter of fact, the first female millionaire in the United States was actually a black woman in the 1800s because she was an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is even in captivity, you can be an entrepreneur. And I'm not exaggerating. Think about it. If you've ever known anybody that's been to prison, there is somebody there that can get you the girly magazine, cigarettes, cell phone, whatever, right? So if this guy can be an entrepreneur in an 8x8 steel box under 24/7 observation, don't tell me you can't be. It doesn't matter if you're 9 or 90. I just talked to a gentleman who's seen me speak 3 times now. Awesome guy. He's read of Entrepreneur. He literally stormed the beaches of Normandy. He was one of the guys off the landing craft, up the hill he goes. He comes to me, he's 94 years old. He is so excited he's got this huge smile. He says, Josh, I haven't felt this alive since I was a teenager. I am about to start my business. At 94 years old, because entrepreneurship is the profession that God calls us to. Paul was an entrepreneur. Joseph, Mary's husband, was an entrepreneur. David was an entrepreneur. Daniel was an entrepreneur. Abraham was an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship runs through Genesis to Revelation. And yes, there are servants at times, but they're for a time. Even if we look at Joseph, he was a servant for a time. Now, in our Western society, we plan on being servants for life. We actually do it on purpose. When you were a servant in biblical times, it's because you couldn't afford to do anything else. You had to sell yourself to your master. Well, now we're actually teaching our children, go to school, get in debt 80 grand, go get a servant job. Well, if I'm going to go in debt, and I'm not saying you should, there's no reason to go in debt. But if I'm going to go in debt, why would I go and get in debt just to become a servant? So we are actually teaching a model that's worse than any example that somebody might grab onto and say, well, Josh, there was servants in the Bible and God loved them too. That's not the point. That's just somebody trying to excuse away what they're doing.
You had talked earlier about when you had come out of high school and you had a hard time communicating. You were very shy. You couldn't even pick up the phone. You couldn't order hamburger. How did that change in you? What was that transformation in your life, and how did you learn to become a good communicator?
So with me, what a lot of people don't understand is they think illiterate people are stupid people. They're not. Because in order to survive in a world full of literate people, you have to get creative. You have to have certain skill sets that actually come into play later in life. The same is true with being really shy. And when I say really shy, I would be 17 years old and seriously not be able to go through a drive-thru at Taco Bell because I was too shy to talk to the person on the other side of the window. But at that same time, in order for me to exist in the world around me, I got really good at reading people. I got so good at reading people that me and my wife can go to a restaurant, the waitress will come up, and just by the way she's walking, I can tell if she has an older brother or not. No joke. I've been in line at a grocery store, read the person in front of me and told them what their favorite TV show is. So because I was so shy, the only way I could really communicate and interact with people is to read them, the style of their hair, what sort of shoes they wear, how they walk, and it all told me things. And then I took that skill set, and as I got out of being shy, it has served me greatly in business because now I can communicate and still keep all those skills that I developed when everybody else thought I was just dumb and stupid. But how I got out of being shy was one of the things I engaged in as a kid was martial arts. And I was, getting kind of really good at it. And I got offered a job by a former Secret Service agent. And I'm not talking about karate where you win a trophy. I'm talking about combat stuff. I got offered a job by a former Secret Service agent to become a private contractor. And I spent a number of years doing that as an entrepreneur. So he would hire my skill set in an entrepreneurship fashion, and I would conduct, let's just say, jobs. So I would do jobs for this gentleman. And then eventually I got a reputation, and I started my own entity doing that. And that got me out of being shy. Because I remember where I was. I was in a hotel. I was about to have a business meeting, and I was still battling this shyness. For some reason, I was still battling the shyness. But at the time, I was also in so many violent confrontations that I would keep a trash can outside my apartment door to put the bloody clothes in that I would wear home from whatever assignment I was on. Like, it was that bad. And I was thinking, well, this makes absolutely no sense. And as the gentleman who I was meeting with sits down, I'm sitting here thinking, what's the worst that could happen? The worst that could happen. It's not a no. The worst that could happen is somehow I irritate this guy so much that he tries to kill me, right? Death is supposedly the worst thing that could happen. And I'm thinking, even if we went to that extreme, even if the guy across from me hates my business proposal so much that he tries to kill me, I even kind of like my odds in that situation. So what am I really afraid of? And it was amazing because at that moment, I hit what people refer to as rock bottom. And rock bottom is actually a physiological thing that happens in your mind. It takes about a millionth of a volt, and people's eyes usually jiggle when it happens. But I hit rock bottom, and boom, from that moment on, I realized I don't have to be shy. There is no bad outcome. Whatever we think of a bad outcome is just another an obstacle and another opportunity for me to grow and change in. And the other thing that really changed me was that about that same time, I was getting really good at business. And there was this couple, they were in their mid-30s, they had a couple kids. And I helped them build their entrepreneurship business to the point where one of them could come home and be with their family. And at that point, I wasn't married. I wasn't even a believer at the time. So at that point, I was just in business for cars and vacations and stuff. So this couple is sitting across the table from me, and they're crying, both of them, including the guy, right? Well, guys don't cry, their eyes sweat. But his eyes were sweating. And I look at him, and I'm like, why are you crying? And they said, we've been praying for something to change. Something had to change. And so I take the experience of the violent world I came out of and how that got me out of being shy, combine that with the fact that really I should be caring about others more than I care about myself, and how many other families are dealing with this pain. And those two things combined, which happened probably within a month of each other, kind of sparked this massive change in me, where now it's, for me, what I'm doing is actually more of a mission to teach entrepreneurship, to promote homeschooling, to promote family, to promote a biblical model of living life, as opposed to just, I'm a Christian for an hour on Sunday and we use 2 or 3 out of context scripture references, and that's church. Let's hurry up and go home before the football game starts. So like I said before, entrepreneurship is more of a lifestyle for me, and that's how I came out of being shy and illiterate. So when we talk about communication, something that is void from the conversation is the objective. So when I teach parents, or I teach business leaders or pastors or politicians, when I teach them to communicate properly, we start with the foundation that you don't say what you want to say. You say what you want them to hear. We call it, do you want to be right or do you want to win? And so many of us want to be right. So many of us want to present information and have it be this moment where the other person who's receiving it, whether it's a child or an adult, yields to your superiority. Like, oh yes, I've learned from you. But what we really need to do is reverse that. We need to go for the win. We heard this expression all the time that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. That's the stupidest expression on earth, because you can make any horse drink if you make the horse thirsty first. So in our communication teachings, what we do is we say, okay, how do we make the horse thirsty first? The person you're communicating with, how do we get them to discover the answer themselves, not get them to realize that I was right in presenting it? And once you do that, it changes everything. You now become this effective communicator without even getting credit for it. Your objectives are being met and nobody is praising you. And that's the hard part, because we love to be praised. We want our spouses to say, yes, you're the smart one that brought me the information. We want our children to say, yes, mom and dad, you're the one that are teaching me. But if we put our focus off of ourselves and put it on the goal of getting them to assimilate the information and know how to put that information into practice, that's why the Bible says in all you're getting, get understanding, because understanding is taking knowledge and wisdom and applying it. But when we do that, it allows us to then become great communicators. And when we teach our parents and our adults, how we teach them how to communicate is start with the end of the conversation first. So we will actually teach people how to get to a sentence or a word or something. And through the entire conversation, your communication set gets so honed that you can actually get them to say the sentence you want at the end. And it's not manipulation, it's just how are we communicating in a way to lead and guide. Most of the time now we communicate in a way to present. I'm not interested in that. That doesn't work. I'm interested in communicating in a way which we lead and guide. So we'll do exercises. We'll take a class of parents or a class of business owners to a restaurant, and I'll say to them, without asking if they have kids or if they're from here, find out where they're from and do they have children. And at first it's like pulling out King Arthur's sword out of the rock, right? Like they don't know how to do it. But through framing different questions, for example, if I were to say, in just this example off the cuff, if I were to say to the hostess or waiter or something, I said, wow, this seems like a really great area of town. I mean, there's got to be some great schools around here, right? Well, that is putting in his mind the opportunity to say, yeah, it is. That's why I moved here. Ah, so he's not from here. And the school thing, he's going to say, well, I really want to know I don't have kids. Or, yeah, matter of fact, my daughter goes to. But and this is a quick example, but enabling that conversation, not with direct questions, gets it exactly where we want it to go. And that's a skill set that we no longer teach from kindergarten through 12th grade, but we should be.